So there's something that I do on tennis matches that allows me to trade them more effectively and to see key points within a match. And I think I may have snuck one of these in on a video at some point in the past, but I thought it was about time that I talked about exactly what I do and how it can help you trade a tennis match. Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. If you're interested in learning to trade successfully on sports, then why not visit the BetAngel Academy, where we have more detailed videos. So one of the things that I do when I'm trading tennis is I get BetAngel using the export P&L reports to monitor how a particular position is going. And I do this in a lot of markets actually, but more particularly in tennis, because it illustrates very clearly where key points are within a tennis match and how I could have traded it more effectively. You may have seen me tweet or blog how well something would have traded, and the reason that I do that is not to sort of say, oh, this is how much money you could have made, because that's pretty obvious if you make a perfect trade. But it's there to basically sort of say, well, this is interesting. This is an interesting moment, an interesting point that occurred within this event or over a series of events. And I've done this in all my trading for as long as I can possibly remember. And it's because I want to learn how to trade better. So what I do is I'll trade a horse race, I'll trade a tennis match, or I'll do a football match, or I'll do something in some event. But while I'm doing it, BetAngel will actually monitor what's going on within the market. So I'll measure the high point, the low point, what happened, and all of those things. But I also do one other thing, which is I get it to export how much profit I've made at any one particular point within that match. And then I can actually go back and look and see where the key points were within that match and if I could have improved it. Now, often what I'll do as well is I'll get BetAngel, and I tend to do this on the Australian Open tennis a lot. I'll go into BetAngel, I'll get it to place a bet for me as the match is due to start, and then it will just track what happened to that position from a trading perspective over the course of the entire match. And that produces a thing that I call a profit graph. And the profit graph will allow me to analyze and look at the match after it's finished to tell me what I could have done better within that match. Now, the interesting thing is that when you do this, what you will find is that you'll see the profit swinging from one side to the other repeatedly over the course of the match, and that's a great characteristic of tennis. You sort of get a get out of jail card in a lot of matches repeatedly. So even if you get your initial trade wrong, as the match progresses, then it eventually turns into a profit because the match swings one way or the other. Now, of course, there are a number of matches where that never happens. You start over here and then the price just plunges away and never returns. So when you're actively trading tennis, what you tend to find is that you get some good matches where you get many opportunities to trade in and out of a particular position, and then you'll get a match where it just doesn't work. And when it just doesn't work, I shrug my shoulders and just go, well, it didn't work, but I know that I will get back more profit than that on another match at some particular point. Now, rather than try and describe to you to camera exactly what a profit graph is and what it does, I thought it would be better to actually look at one and then actually describe what you're looking at within that particular chart. But it's something that I do repeatedly. When I gather data on a match, I've gathered data on, I don't know how many tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of matches I've done this on. And it allows me to look back at a match and figure out where a key point was in the match and what I should have done and how I could have anticipated it. And that's how I picked up on what I need to do during a tennis match. So anyhow, let's have a look at a profit graph. So here's a profit graph of a match between Peng and Wozniacki, and I'll explain what you're looking at on this particular screen. So let me draw a line first. So over on the left hand side here, you can see this is obviously the start of the match because the profit and loss is 0. And then, excuse me, over on the right hand side of here is the end of the match. So you can see here that Wozniacki lost this match because it ended up at -100. So you can also see that we were trading with a £100 stake on this particular example. So I probably wasn't trading this market. I was just put a £100 stake in just to see what happened and then to get the results out of the back end of here. But if we draw a line across at 0, you can see approximately that this is the baseline. This is where you would make neither a profit nor a loss on this particular occasion. And as a consequence, this would be the sort of median line where the match, I mean, that's not particularly straight there. Let me redo that again. There we go. That's a bit better. This is the line where you would make neither a profit nor a loss at any one particular point. And when you look at this particular match, you can see that there are a couple of obvious moments that occurred within here. So you can see the way that the market is going up and down at any individual point. And these are obviously the key points that occurred within the match. But essentially what you're saying is that if you look at the match from a trading perspective, you're effectively saying that anything above the line here, if we just sort of shade this in temporarily over here, is a position that necessarily is favourable to Wozniacki. So you can see we can colour those bits in, and we can say that if we backed Wozniacki at this particular point, these would be moments at which the match would be favourable for her. If we had a trading position on her, those are the points at which the match would be favourable. And if we backed Peng or laid Wozniacki, you can see these are the points within the match where it was favourable for a profit on Peng. So you can also see from there that obviously the way the match progressed, and you can check this with the stats and so on, is that there's a critical point within the match here where the momentum swings from one player to the next. But also, if you're looking at the match from a number of perspectives, I mean, we can break it down to a much narrower view in terms of what happened within the match. Because if we look at this point here, this would be a point at which Wozniacki was broken. And then you can see Wozniacki goes a break up here, and then it goes back or Peng breaks back. And then Wozniacki breaks back again, Peng breaks back here, Wozniacki runs away with the set there, and then you can see that it swings back completely the other way. So if we count the number of arrows we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 significant swings there, and then the match swings back again in Wozniacki's favour at this particular point before finally swinging down and finishing with a bit more certainty towards Peng. So this is why trading tennis is interesting, because if we backed or laid at the start here, above that line means that we would have profited if Wozniacki went to win. So if we're saying anything above the line here, so it could be this point, it could be that point, it could be any of these points over here, or even this point over here, any of these would have produced a potential profit for us at some point if we would have backed Wozniacki. Now if we would have backed Peng or laid Wozniacki, you can see we could have profited here, around this particular point here, and then of course she actually ended up winning the match as well. So can you see this is why tennis is appealing, because it swings backwards and forwards repeatedly as they try and head towards the end point over on the far side. They're all looking to win the match, but there's many different ways in which the match can actually be won. So when you look at these graphs, it's very easy to sort of tally up where the key points within the market are and why those particular points occurred. And rather than just looking at it from a profit above or below zero, which we're looking over here at the zero line, this is where we started with nothing and there was no profit on either side, and then the line obviously follows above that. It's perfectly possible that you could have traded it in a number of different ways. So you could have traded on both sides of it, but you have to say that the possibility of getting each one of these calls absolutely nailed on is probably unlikely. However, you can see that as the match progressed, we can draw points between all of the areas within the match where the match swung one way or the other, or there was a point within the match where it looked likely that somebody was going to get broken in serve. Or, if you want to take it from an extreme, you could just pick off the extremes in each of these and sort of say, well, when we reach the first extreme, which would be a break-up or very likely to win the set, then that may be the point at which we reverse the position and take it back in the other direction. Or it could be when we come off of a big point within the game and it swings back the other way and goes back to parity again, maybe that's the point at which you decide to join. But by looking at these graphs, correlating it to score, you get a good feel and understanding of roughly where you need to be at any one particular point in the match. Making broad calls in terms of when somebody's a break or a set up allows you to sort of benefit from a move that occurs in between those individual points. But also, if the market starts to head back in the other direction, there's no reason why you couldn't catch it going the other way. So it's a good sort of way of illustrating where all of the key points are within a tennis market, but it also illustrates when we shade this area above or below the line, that look at the points at which we could shade where Wozniacki was in the ascendancy and where Peng was in the ascendancy. You can actually see that there are lots of opportunities within the market where you could have profited from on both sides, regardless of whatever your position was when you actually looked at the market to start with. And that's more or less the appeal of trading, the fact that if you pick the right match, then you will get loads of these swings and loads of opportunities to profit as the match goes one way or the other. And typically you tend to be looking at WTA matches, you tend to be looking at women's matches for this to occur, and typically you would tend to look at competitive matches as well, because this sort of volatility that you're seeing, if you look at the range of volatility here, excluding the final score, you can see that it was pretty wide. You could have caught a big swing in both directions on both players at one particular point. Now obviously there are going to be matches where the graph just sort of does something like that, or perhaps it deviates briefly before heading back down. But part of the skill of trading tennis is picking matches where this is less likely, and matches where you expect to see a much wider swing in terms of volatility. But anyhow, this is how I tend to analyse matches after they've occurred, is I'll get BetAngel to look at a range of matches, and this is how I refine entry and exit points within tennis, is to look at the profit graph and see where the optimal moments to get involved in the market were.